Want some water?
You got some good cameras, dude.
Oh, thank you. Here.
Very crisp. Sure. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Headphones, if you want them, you definitely.
I don't need them.
You don't need them.
Is this a Havanese or?
Yeah.
Oh.
That is a Havanese.
Yeah,
How'd you know?
well, we know
He's a
our-
curious fella. He knows these
folks-
things.
Curious fellow,
A lot
right?
of folks don't get that on
Well, it's
first
because
try.
my wife is
Thank
on the
you.
board of directors of the Aspen Animal Shelter.
No way.
So she's a real. She's had every
Oh.
beast in the book.
Did you get some good skiing in this season?
I only do cross country now.
Cross country now.
Yeah, but I did. Yeah. Actually, it's still snowing.
I know, but today was closing day, wasn't it? at
It's
Aspen?
still going. No, it's still going on.
It's still going on.
It's going to go to June.
Oh my
They got
God.
18 inches of snow 2 days ago, and it's still snowing.
Holy cow!
It's crazy. People sent me pictures. It looks exactly like midwinter.
Like midwinter.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I saw that you brought Guthrie out there for
Yeah.
a couple days or.
We did well. It was actually makeup shows from COVID.
Oh.
We had tried to book. We had 3 shows. We had Vail, Telluride, and Aspen.
Yeah.
Booked in 2021, and they got canceled. Then in early 22, it got canceled again. So this was the third time's a charm tour, we called it.
Oh my God.
And so we went back out and rebooked everything and got them all 3 in.
How do you feel about Vail? Because most Aspenites aren't,
it's-
isn't there a rivalry or is
It's
that
like,
not true?
It's like the Republican ski resort.
Yeah.
No. It's Vail's Vail. The mountain itself is amazing, but it's so close to Denver. It gets a huge week. Are you a skier?
Yeah, big skier.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
A lot of people come up from Denver for the weekend because it's accessible.
So close, yeah.
It's not that extra 2 hours or hour and 45 minutes to Aspen. So it just gets too crowded. But if you ever skied Vail, it's an amazing mountain.
Yeah.
The town is, it's an ersatz Australian village.
Oh my God, I got tagged by the dog.
Oh, I thought you jumped because of the big word I used.
The dog just jumped into my lap.
I said ersatz and you jumped, and I thought, wow, do you have like an allergy to
I was like,
vocabulary?
what is touching me? Oh my God. That was good. The thing about need to contain myself now.
I'm gonna let everybody know. Zach has an allergy to large vocabulary words.
Large vocabulary.
Or small, unusual vocabulary.
And small dogs too.
Yes,
The
yes.
thing about Aspen though is once you're in that town, you've got the town and then you have the
You're
4
there.
mountains.
You're there. Oh yeah.
The skiing's
There's
insane.
There's nothing like it.
I've been to Vail like one time and then I
Yeah.
never
No,
went back.
Aspen is Aspen. There's no. I mean, it's world class. It's it's one of those places where you can have a world class, like, lifestyle experience. Whether
Yeah.
that's eating, shopping, culture, whatever it is you want, and then you have this world class, alpine experience on 4 different mountains and backcountry and everything in between. Yeah, it's pretty special, I have to say.
Do people bother you when you walk around the town or are they kind of
No,
leave you alone?
no. I've been there. I've been there for over close to 40 years.
You've been there before it even.
Oh yeah, I went there in 1968,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
On a college
College
trip.
ski trip,
College
that's
ski
right.
trip.
Yeah.
You saw an ad in a paper that said what, like $120
That's right. I
flights,
always say
everything.
you've done your research.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
good. Good, Zach.
absolutely.
Good. I'm
Yeah.
I'm already impressed.
But that was but that trip I remember the story in your book
Yes,
about that trip.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, and I was at Temple University, and I was a skier back east. Skiing the little blue ice ski
Yeah.
resorts.
What mountains? It's still there?
I used to go to Spring Mount in Pennsylvania when I was in high school with the rope tow, and then I went up to Vermont. I went to Massachusetts to Brody and all those ones, Camelback, Elk Mountain in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. So I did them all. But then once you go out west, you get spoiled very quickly.
Did you ever take ski lessons or were you basically self-taught?
I was pretty much self-taught, and then I became a telemark skier in the 90s, and then I skied telemark from all through the 90s into the early 2000s.
Yeah. I've never done cross-country skiing. It doesn't seem...
It-
There's got to be less adrenaline, right?
No,
or it's
no.
fun.
There's no
no
adrenaline.
adrenaline.
There's just a lot of aerobic.
It's just aerobic
weakness.
work.
It is work, but it's beautiful work.
Okay.
It really is. It's the you work your shoulders, your arms, your lungs, your legs. It's really an amazing workout. I mean, you do 40 minutes of cross country skiing, you're
Done.
worked.
Yeah.
and you're not going to get whacked by a snowboarder or another skier. You're not going to hit a tree.
That's going to be the headline. John calls out snowboarders on Zak Kuhn Show.
No, don't do that either. But the thing is, if you hit a tree while cross-country skiing,
you're fine.
It's your fault.
It's your fault. That's the big point. It's your fault.
It's your fault. You've got no one to blame.
Wait, so you were just in Florida for the premiere of a movie that you wrote a couple songs for. What was the movie?
This was also a pandemic project. It's called Gringa. It just was released yesterday, the 21st, and it is streaming now on many platforms, Comcast, Apple Music, and all sorts of things. It's a great little movie. It was done by the director is a friend of mine, and during the pandemic, he finished it in 19, and he was he's getting ready for post production, and the pandemic kind of shut everything down. He called me and asked me if I wanted to write a song for the movie, and of course I was home and I had some time, so I did.
And what did he give you? Did he give you like a prompt or anything? Or
he gave me a treatment. Basically, told me, he didn't send me the entire script, but he basically told me what it was about, and I went for it. And then he liked the song, and he said, "Hey, you want to do some more? I need music." I said, "I'll do as much as you want." And I began to churn out these songs, doing a lot of some collaborations, some co-writes, and also collaborations performing with various people. So as it turned out, I ended up I wrote 5 songs. One of them didn't quite make it. So I ended up with 4 songs in the movie. And then there's one more song in the movie that was done by Jesse McCartney from Maroon 5.
Oh, yeah.
And he has one. And then the score was done by another guy named Tim Williams, who's amazing. But we all kind of collaborated together, and I got to do a duet with a great Mexican female named Jimena Sariana, who's a huge star in Mexico. And I wrote a song in English, and she rewrote the verses in Spanish, and then we sang it together in Spanish, and I had to learn it. I took high school Spanish, so I was, part of the way there. But, so I learned it, and we did it in Spanish, which was a unique thing for me. And then I had another gal named Daphne Willis write a song that me and my niece wrote
No
together.
way.
And I needed a great female singer, and Daphne used to live here in Nashville. She lives in L.A. now. She's amazing. So she sang that one, and then I sang 2 other ones.
Is your niece a musician?
Yeah, she's a performer here in town.
No way.
Yeah.
So
Anna Lee, her name is.
And what does she call you up constantly and say?
No, she's actually pretty respectful. I help her out.
Why? If I was her, I'd be calling you up 24/7. Why be respectful?
I helped her in the beginning. I helped her get going, making her initial demos. I think she just wants to carve it out herself, you know. But I've helped her, here and there. And she came up with a great song idea, and I finished the song, and then. I actually asked her, I said, "Do you want to sing it in the movie?" And she didn't feel comfortable singing it. So I got Daphne to do it. And then there was a really cool song. My wife found this guy on Instagram named Zahn Campbell from South Carolina who had this, I would call it a song idea. I didn't think it was complete, but I really liked what he was doing. And I got a hold of him. I DM'd him, and I said, "Hey, you want to take this song to another level?" And this was actually before the movie. And he went, "Yeah, let's do it." So he and I collaborated via Zoom, and then he came to Nashville, and we completely fleshed this thing out.
This was just a totally random guy that your wife
Totally
found?
random guy, yeah.
And she thought, hey, this guy has a good song.
And I heard it, and I liked it too. I liked where it was coming from, but I didn't really feel like it was a complete song. It was just a great idea. And then we finished it. And you're going to love this story. This is really crazy. And this shows you how this whole project kind of went. While I was writing the other songs for Gringa movie, I had completed this other song with Zahn Campbell. And he's kind of a rapper. He sings, but he's most kind of a rapper. And so I had it, and I didn't know what to do with it. And then just randomly, I said to the director, I said, I've got this song. I said, I don't think it's right for the movie. There was no Latin American content. It wasn't skewed in that direction musically. I said, I think it's a really cool song. I said, but I don't know. I said, you know what? He goes, send it to me. Let me hear it. I sent it to him, and he said, okay. He said, you're not going to believe this. He goes, well, I'm going to send you a clip from the movie, because I had not seen anything. So in the clip, the young gal, she's living with her mother, who's a real estate agent, in Southern California. Her mother dies in a car accident, and she wakes up by herself in their condo, basically alone. She's wearing a shirt that says, "Do not disturb." The song is called "Do Not Disturb."
Oh my God.
Yes. I know. It's almost too,
Oh my God.
too incredible to be real, but it's true. Totally true. And the song that Servan came up with was called DND, Do Not Disturb. And he said, "Did you know about this?" I said, "How could I have known?" I said, "You didn't even send me the script." And he said, "This is too much." He goes, "I love this song." He goes, "We're using it." And so it's the opening song in the movie.
Oh my God.
So, yeah. So it was meant to be in a sense, yeah.
When you're DMing this guy, is this sort of a random guy in the world who's a songwriter?
He's a guy who's posting stuff on it on.
How do you know these people aren't crazy? Or, I mean, isn't...
I sensed he was okay.
You sensed he was okay?
He was real
and-
respectful, and he was young, and he got excited, and I said, "This is great. We can do something really cool with this." So,
Oh my God.
yeah, it was cool.
Okay, so we have to check this movie out.
Yeah, it's good, and it's great. It's Steve Zahn.
Yeah.
Steve Zahn's the star, and this young newcomer, the gal who's the principal. Her name is Jess Gabor, and she's great. And then there's Judy Greer, and there's Roselyn Sanchez, and then there's 3 amazing Mexican actors. One guy, Jorge Jimenez, he was in Narcos.
Yeah, I know exactly who that is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he plays a really mean bad guy.
Yeah.
In this movie, he plays a priest, and I saw him the other night, and he was joking. He said this. He goes, "I was so happy to do this movie. It's the first time anyone ever
Is gonna see me be a
cast
nice
me in
guy."
a nice role," because he's always like a badass, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then this gal named Valentina, who's a young telenovela star in Mexico. And then a guy named Nico, who's the kind of the young male stud in the movie.
Oh, I love it.
It's a good movie. It's
Okay,
really
wait, and
good.
tell me the name again. It's
Gringa.
Gringa.
Gringa. She is the Gringa who goes to find. Well, okay, real quick plot synopsis. She's living with her mother in Southern California. The mother dies in a car accident. Her father, she doesn't even know her father. He's long gone out of their life for years. But she does know that he's in Mexico. She just randomly puts on a backpack, decides to go to Mexico and find her father. And when she gets there, it's not what she expected.
Yeah.
He's a surfer, he's an alcoholic, and he's not ready to have a daughter. And it's so, but in the best of all Hollywood traditions, it ends up.
They come together. Of course. Not to ruin the ending, of course, John.
No, not to ruin the ending. Spoiler alert, it's all good in the end.
Okay. This
Yeah,
sounds like a good film.
It's a really good film. It was made on a fairly low budget, but it's really high quality.
Okay.
And the music's fantastic.
Oh my God!
If I
this,
do say
the
so
score is out of control. You have to go listen to it.
Yeah.
You know, you're obviously the Philly guy, but you were born in New York, and pretty much from the start of your professional career at Atlantic, it's all happening in New York.
Daryl and I have never recorded in Philadelphia.
You've
in
never
our
recorded in
lives.
Philly ever.
Nope.
So was that a decision to push the Philly brand forward? Like, was that a benefit to make you guys stand out?
It was kind of a decision, but there were circumstances involved. One is that we had a very kind of really not a good relationship with a guy in Philadelphia who we were working with who wasn't helping our career. In fact, he was hindering it. It took us a while to realize what was happening. And then we ran into Tommy Mottola in New York City when he was working at Chapel Music as a song plugger. And he liked us because we had our publishing was signed to Chapel Music. And so we did kind of a showcase for them to kind of show off our new songs. And he said, "Well, what's your deal? I like what you guys are doing." And we said, "Well, we don't know what our deal is. Our deal is we're in a bad we're in a bad business relationship in Philadelphia, and we don't want to be there." And he said, "I'll take care of it." And that was kind of how that started.
And he was 20 years old, right, or 21?
He was the same age as my age. He was 22.
So what did he have a demeanor to him that was just
said-
confident or like?
Yeah, he was a New York, Italian New York. He looked good in a suit,
Yeah.
and he was very aggressive, and he said, "I've never managed anybody, but I'm going to take care of this." That's basically.
And he
what
went and
said.
did.
Yeah.
But were there conversations throughout your career to say, hey, let's brand these guys as the Philly guys because it stands out a little different?
No, it's just once you're, it's like Rocky. Once you're from Philly, you're always
from Philly.
You can never leave.
What is a Philly?
You can climb the steps of the art museum, but you can never leave.
You can never leave.
That's right.
Yeah. What's a Philly chord progression? I've heard you say like some of your songs have a Philly chord progression. What is that?
Oh, it's more than that. It has to do with, first of all, Philadelphia R&B is pretty sophisticated when it comes to the harmonic, construct of it. Has to do with using a lot of major seventh chords. Has to do with using like minor nines, chords that are a little bit more jazzy, I would say, than your average pop kind of a thing. A lot of it comes from. A lot of it came from, see, Daryl and I were working at the Schubert Theater building. We were songwriters for this guy. And above us, a few floors above us, Gamble and Huff had just begun their production career. They were always around Philadelphia. Kenny Gamble had a band called Kenny Gamble and the Romeos. Leon Huff was a piano player. But then they really solidified as a production team. And they took an office a few floors above us. So we were friends. And we would see them and, all that sort of thing. And at a very critical point, it was like if we were going to if our career was going to, evolve, it was either go upstairs and work with Gamble and Huff or do something else.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to be part of, even though I love them and they're some of the greatest of all time, we felt that we could carve our own niche, our own career path. And the only way to do that was to leave Philadelphia.
And then you have this audition at Atlantic. And
well, it's way more complicated than that.
It's way more complicated than that. But did you ever interact with Ahmet?
It's way more complicated.
It's way more complicated than that.
We auditioned all over New York City and did showcases for every record company. And as soon as we would finish playing on that evening, they would come up and go crazy. You guys are the best. Wow, I've never heard anything that sounds like this. You guys are unique.
And then nothing.
Then the next day, we'd ask the guy we were working with, what happened? They passed. It was always, they passed. And we're like, what do you mean they passed? They said they liked us. No, they don't. You're not right. And we're like, something's wrong. So Daryl and I scrounged money together, and we took a flight to L.A. We went to L.A. because we didn't know anywhere else to go, and we had neither of us had ever been to L.A. And we also didn't realize that you needed a car.
You need a car to get around.
So we checked into the hotel on Santa Monica Boulevard, and all we could do was walk from that hotel to the International House of Pancakes and Barney's Beanery, because that was the distance. It was about a mile. We could walk back and forth. But there was a guy from Chapel Music who, because of our connection with Chapel, he met us at the airport, let us actually sleep on his couch the first night we got there. And then he began taking us around, and he took us to Earl McGrath's house. And Earl McGrath, you know anything about Earl?
Not really, no.
Earl was very good friends with Ahmet Ertegun.
Okay.
And he just passed away recently. There's actually a record out with the things that he's done. He was basically an art dealer, a bon vivant, a raconteur, and a very close friend of Ahmet Ertegun.
But how'd you get in the room with him?
The guy from Chapel Music knew him.
And set it up.
And set it up. So we went to Earl's house. He had a little bungalow right off Santa Monica Boulevard, behind the Troubadour. We went in, and he had all this amazing artwork, and he was very, like intellectual, and so we sat in his garden and we played him some songs, and he started laughing. That's the thing I remember the most about it. He actually started laughing, and we were like thinking, okay, this is really weird, because it was a very eclectic, house. It was very, it was out there, and he said, "Are you guys for real?" And we said,
"What does that mean?"
Well, that's what we said. We said, "Yeah, we're for real. These are." He goes, "What are you doing? Playing songs in my house?" He goes, "I'm calling Atlantic Records right now." He goes, "You're going to be on Atlantic Records." And we said, "Okay."
But what you were playing had to be much more folksy sounding.
Oh, it's totally artsy fartsy.
It sounded like
folksy.
the first record, probably.
It was Whole Oates.
Whole Oates. Sound
yes.
like Whole Oates.
It was Whole Oates.
Yeah.
It was the genesis of the music on Whole Oates. That's right.
So then, and then he calls Ahmed, and then what? You fly to New York right after?
Yeah. He called Atlantic, and he said, I'm sending these two guys. You're going to listen to them. So then with Tommy Mottola, we went to Atlantic Records, and we went into a little studio. And I remember Daryl was not feeling well. The piano was kind of out of tune. And into the room came Mark Meyerson, who was the head of the company at the time, Jerry Greenberg, another one of the principals. And Arif Martin.
Yeah.
And we played the songs. And at the end, we did our dog and pony show, basically.
Did you keep Tommy around because you felt like, hey, we're supposed to have a manager?
He kind of set it up.
He set it up.
He kind of set it up. And then at the end of the interview, Arif Martin just said to me, he goes, I love them. I will produce them. And that was it. Boom.
And he didn't fool around like everyone else was saying, oh, we love you, but we'll pass.
No,
Boom, you were in.
He stood up, I will produce them.
Yeah.
If Arif Martin said he was going to produce you, that was all that mattered. Arif was one of the greatest producers of all time, you know.
Yeah.
And he held so much sway, and his musical opinion was so, appreciated and revered that, he just.
Could you have made those early, like that first record without him? Did you guys have this?
We could have, but it wouldn't have been the same record.
Yeah.
The thing about Arif, which made him so amazing, was that he was a pure musician. He didn't care about genres and styles. He was trained classically. He loved American jazz. He loved folk music. He loved blues. But he had all the tools. He had all the skill. He could write symphonic arrangements. He could write for strings. He understood music as pure music and not as any kind of fad. He was not swayed by fad or what was on the radio. So when he heard these songs, he treated each song. He served the song, which is my mantra. It's what I learned from him. It's the way I think about music today. Even here in Nashville, I run every session the way Arif Martin ran his sessions, because that's how I learned, because I was in the room with him. So it made an indelible imprint on my approach to how to make records. And so to this day, I do exactly what he did.
Yeah. When you think of Hall & Oates songs, there's so many iconic background vocals or like riffs that happen in between the chorus with the vocals. Mm-hmm. Did you guys slave over that stuff, or was it kind of obvious? Like
it was easy.
It was just easy.
Super easy.
Like Kiss on My List, like all that stuff that happens in between the chorus, like you just basically do it.
Yeah. The thing I think a lot of people also don't really sometimes identify is that one of the characteristics of a lot of our big hits is that the background vocals are singing the hook.
Yes. That's what I'm asking.
It's very unusual.
That's what yeah.
The background vocals are singing the hook, and the lead vocal, which is mostly Daryl, of course, is riffing around it and dancing around it, musically. And it's a trademark. It's a signature trademark. We didn't consciously think about it. We just did it.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first 3 records were on Atlantic, and then you guys then moved to RCA for your 4th record, and that's when you had your first really big hit. No?
Well, yeah, that's another story. Though.
But did RCA bring a certain mojo to it that you weren't getting from Atlantic?
Nope.
It was just the hit Sarah Smile that took off?
What happened was we did Whole Oates, which was a very singer-songwriter folky. And then we did A Band of Luncheonette, which really, Daryl and I both consider that to be our real first album. Because it was written in a condensed period of time.
That's my favorite album front to back.
Well, it's my favorite album that we've ever made.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting that the sophomore album would be the one, but that's okay. And it had She's Gone on it. And,
right.
And She's Gone was a masterpiece, and it still is. And, and I'll say that, I'm not I'm not bragging when I say it. It just is.
It's perfect. It's so tight.
It's
there's no fat on that song. It is just everything is perfect.
Everything is right. Yes,
yeah,
that's correct. Well, and we released it, and of course, it didn't become a hit. It went to the top 40, and then, interestingly enough, Tavares, which was a R&B group at the time, they covered it and had a #1 R&B record with it. And we said, okay, there's something wrong here. If these guys can record,
they
our
don't
song,
even do the modulation at the end, right?
I know.
They left it out.
They can have a #1 song. Why can't we have a #1 song? It's our song.
Yeah.
And I've honestly felt our version was way better.
Yeah.
But then we released it again. and it went into the top maybe 20. And so now the time has passed, and because we had no mandate because Abandoned Luncheonette wasn't successful, and She's Gone wasn't really successful commercially, there was no reason for us to do the same thing, so we did an experimental rock album with Todd Rundgren, which, in retrospect, I didn't enjoy doing it that much, but in retrospect, it was an important component that led to the future, because it enabled us to do also. We weren't kind of restricted to a certain style, because we could do anything at that point. And then we here again we thought, well, it's not working at Atlantic, and we got an offer to go to RCA. RCA was interesting at the time because they didn't really have an act like us. They had John Denver, and they had some people like that. We fit we kind of fit an empty slot in there. Specifically
roster. That you were a duo, or just sonically?
Just our style.
Yeah.
Our style, whatever that was, So we switched to RCA, and we said there was a guy named Christopher Bond who was in our band in the early 70s. He was from Philadelphia, and he had moved to LA, and he had become a producer and a session guy, and he knew the studios, and he knew a lot of the session players. And he said, look, you guys have been recording in New York. You're out of Philly. He goes, you should come to LA. We got the best studios. We got the best players. And at the time, in the mid-'70s, the best records were coming out of LA. They really were. And so we thought, okay, well, what do we have to lose? We have nothing to lose. So we went to LA. And for 3 albums, we made those albums with him. And the first one had Sarah Smile on it. That became a hit. That opened the door. And then Atlantic Records, on the coattails of Sarah Smile, released She's Gone, and that finally became a top 5 record. And then Rich Girl followed that on the following album. So we got on a roll, basically, and that put us on the map. And we were always touring, but then that put us in the bigger rooms, the bigger venues, and that really put us on the map.
At one point, didn't you meet with George Martin of the Beatles?
We did.
And you guys said, did he offer to produce you guys? And you said, well, we're not interested. Or it just didn't work. Really. It just didn't flow.
It was just a lunch in New York. And it was kind of like, it didn't seem like, in retrospect, it would have been really great to work with him.
Do you think
so? Very interesting. Sure. He's very similar to Arif. Very, very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, what he did with the Beatles was exactly what Arif Martin did with us. George Martin was a classically trained, musician who could hear music outside of the restrictions of whatever the pop flavor of the month was. He didn't care about that. Look what the Beatles did. They had cellos and strings and flutes and F trumpets and all kinds of odd, then of course sitars and and so on and so forth. Yeah, George Martin was a pure musician. He just treated each song for what it was.
Yeah, makes sense. So there's a great story in the book too, where there's this big MTV competition where there were 2 planes.
Yes.
What was this? This is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Well, that's the excess of the 80s.
You couldn't do this today, right? The environmentalists would be freaking out about private planes going everywhere.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, let's take a look at some of the big pop stars today. They have no trouble with their private planes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's not go that far. But it was a promotion, and MTV was hot. MTV was the thing. We were hot. We were, and you're talking about the 80s now.
Yeah.
We were at the top of the pop world, and we could do no wrong. And MTV wanted to do something extravagant. So we had a contest. The winners of the contest, I think, I can't remember if I started in LA and I went to Kansas or vice versa, but Daryl and I were both on the each coast, either New York or LA, and then we both got on a plane with a bunch of fans, and we flew toward the middle of Kansas, which was the center of the country. And one of the planes landed first, and that was it.
And then what? The fans on that plane won a ton of money. And,
they won something.
Or
yeah.
they won something.
Yeah, they won something.
And were they cool, the fans? Did they know how to handle?
They were great.
They knew how to hang and,
sure,
and
they were great. Yeah.
And be cool. And,
yeah.
This is hilarious. I want
you know
to do
what
this today.
someone should do?
Yeah.
Someone should find those fans and interview them.
No
one
right?
has ever done that, by the way.
Do you think they're around? How would we find
Unless
them?
they're dead.
They're dead. No, they got some of them got to be around. How would we find them?
I don't know. If they were 30, they could be 80 years old by now.
So when you're like one of the biggest rock stars in the world, I know that, like, this might sound crazy. I know, like, of course you're out running around and causing debauchery and being a rock star, but I just feel like your schedules at the same time would have to be so crazy with touring and recording.
It's completely crazy.
So when
everyone
did-
always thinks that, you know, that I love the 80s because that's when we were the most popular and we were on top of the pop world. And if far be it from the truth, the 80s went by in such a blur because all we did was work. You know, we wrote, we recorded, we toured, we made MTV videos, we did promotion, press, went all over the world, and it never ever stopped. I love the 70s because everything was new. Every city was new. The people we met were new. The experiences were new. We weren't jaded. It was just this constant, discovery. It was a decade of discovery, which I think is way more interesting than a decade of, as you might
Excess.
say, debauchery, excess.
Yeah.
Although I won't disparage the music we made in the 80s because it was great. It was really great pop songs. But we made good music in the 70s too. So.
Yeah. What happened in 79, not to jump around, but you say this in the book, in 79, you guys were in basically arenas and playing massive rooms, and then you go back into clubs.
Yeah.
Was that the most depressing thing ever?
Well, it could have been, but I think, and I will give credit to myself and Daryl on this one, is that we made lemons. We made lemonade out of lemons. Is that the right phrase? I don't know.
Yeah.
What happened was we, after the 3 in a row, Sarah Smiles, She's Gone, Rich Girl, after that, we made an album called Beauty on a Back Street, which was terrible. It's the worst album we ever made. My opinion. I'm always speaking for myself here, by the way.
Yeah.
You'll have to talk to Daryl on the other side. But anyway, what happened was Christopher Bond was in a really bad place, drug-wise and mentally. And we were in a great place. We wrote some really weird songs that just weren't, there was something wrong. And we were in L.A. for the third album. We didn't want to be there anymore. We had spent 3 years in L.A. on and off in between tours, recording, writing, and basically living in L.A. And we wanted to go back to the East Coast. We weren't comfortable there. We just felt we had kind of run out of steam there. And Chris Bond lost it. And so that album is colored to me personally by the very depressing environment that we were in, or place we were in mentally. So when that album kind of bombed, we didn't know what to do. And so that really took us out of the game because we had no hits. And once you have no hits, of course, things change. So we started playing smaller venues, and we thought to ourselves, well, you know what? We can look at this as a, kind of a career ending moment, or we could look at it as an opportunity. And what we did was we had been recording everything we had done up to that point. We had recorded with studio musicians who were great. But our goal was to have a band that we could play live on the road and go directly in the studio and translate the energy of touring into the record. And we just didn't have it. So we basically borrowed Elton John's band in 1978. Caleb Quay, Roger Pope, and Kenny Passarelli, who were on the Yellow Brick Road tour with Elton. And Elton was off the road, so we basically borrowed his band. And it was really cool because it started to happen. We got the feeling, oh, you know what, our instincts are right. This is the right thing to do. And we went into the studio with those guys after touring with them, and we made Along the Red Ledge, which I think is a really good record. Here again, not commercially successful, but a really good record. And so we got on we realized that, okay, this is the direction we need to go, even though those guys weren't going to be a permanent solution. And then also, it was the first album that, what's his name, David Foster ever produced.
That's right. And
we were the first act that David Foster ever produced.
And it was a mixed experience, or I mean, he's a genius. But talk to me about this.
David Foster's an amazing musician.
Yeah,
he wasn't for us.
It wasn't for you guys.
But
nobody was for you guys except maybe Arif Martin.
That's right.
But basically, you guys were the only ones who could bring the sound out.
You guys were for you guys.
You guys were for you guys. Is that fair to say, though?
Yes, you guys for you guys. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a T-shirt made.
That you guys are for you guys. Yeah. But like, why was it? Was he just? He brought too much of his.
Well, I'll give you an example of how you get off on the wrong foot with someone. He played us a song one time on the piano, and the song went. It was like this. Ding, ding. Something happened along the way. Said, whoa, whoa. After the love is gone. And we went, nah, it's not for us. One of the greatest songs of all time.
Was that his fault, though? What was the...
No, he just said, I think you guys would do a great job. And we were like, maybe, I don't know. That was a big mistake.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And then what, did you hear Earth, Wind, and Fire playing that?
Yeah, and then he produced Earth, Wind, and Fire,
Yeah.
and that song was a mega Grammy.
And then you go, oh my God, that could have been ours.
No, not really. Never look back.
You never look back.
Nah.
You can't. Why? So, like, I'm a guitar player, and I grew up idolizing G. Smith.
G is a great guitar player.
Why is he a great guitar player? Did you know? Was he always great? I mean, of course he's great. But
Well, he was after that that experience with that band with Roger and Kenny and Caleb. That's when we started to assemble what became the '80s band.
yeah.
And that started in '79 into '80. And one of the first people we got was G.E. Smith.
Where'd you find him?
I don't know where we found him. I really don't know where we found him. He was in New York, and he auditioned, and he was very charismatic. He was bigger than life personality. And the thing about G.E. is that he's a student of the guitar. He's a real student of the guitar. He, he's one of these guys. He came up through the bar band thing. He can play any. You name a rock song, a classic rock song, he can play it. It doesn't matter. And he has a lot of facility with being able to to really dip into his encyclopedic knowledge of guitar stuff. That's the kind of guy he is. So anyway, he was a big addition because he really added a lot of fire and charisma to our live show. And then he brought along Mickey Curry, who he had played with in bar bands. And Mickey Curry had never played in a professional band before, so we were his first big, step. And then eventually we got T-Bone, Tom Wolk.
Yeah.
Came
I
from
love this story too, which you probably told a million times. But
Yeah.
you were auditioning someone else.
It had come down to two guys. It come down to this really good-looking guy from Long Island with long blonde hair.
Somebody should interview that guy. Where's that guy?
Yeah, where's he today, right? and then T-Bone. They were the two. They were both great, really good bass players. But the one guy looked really good. He had a real vibe. And T-Bone was very kind of flannel shirts and, knit cap and, kind of quiet, but really great player. And then the guy, the good-looking guy made a very fatal mistake. He told Daryl that he thought it'd be a good idea when he got in a band that he should sing "Kiss on My
What
List."
an idiot! Who does this guy? Who does he think he is? What is he doing?
Let's put it this way: that was a bad career move.
And Daryl literally said in front of him, he literally said, "Let's go get the other guy."
He said, "John, let's get the bald guy,"
Let's get the bald guy.
because T-Bone was bald.
Yeah.
And he said, let's
What
get
a
the bald guy.
moron! Oh my God!
Yeah,
What is he doing?
I have no idea.
But this is crazy. But that band, is that the best? Is that the best? Hold on. Oh, we're doing a water refill here.
A water refill. That was the best. That was the best thing that Daryl and I ever did. Was hire T-Bone.
Yeah.
He became the real rock, and I will say this, in a town full of amazingly talented musicians. He was the best musician I ever played with.
Wasn't there a session you did in Nashville with him?
Yes.
And weren't like Michael Rhodes and all these bass
Yes.
players, they wanted to see him. Like they
Yes.
were all.
He was without a doubt. He's passed away, God rest his soul. But he was the best musician I've ever played with, just as a pure musician.
Yeah.
I had never heard him play a wrong note ever, on any instrument. And he played guitar, unbelievable guitar player, unbelievable keyboard player, unbelievable bass player, and just musical sensibility beyond anybody else.
And did him and GE really click in the
Oh, yeah,
band?
well,
And
the band
was incredible.
It was an incredible band.
Yeah.
It was a great assembly, and then we always had Charlie,
Yeah.
our sax player from '75. He joined us in '74 or '75. So but it's just one of those things, It just was, the chemistry was there, the skill, the talent was all in one place. But I brought T-Bone. My first album that I recorded in Nashville in 2007. I got it with a great engineer named Bill Vorndick, who just passed away just recently, and he asked me who was going to play, and I said, well, I'm going to count on you to get me some really great guys, because I didn't know the really good players in town. And he assembled some really good guys. He said, who's going to be on bass? And I said, well, I'm going to bring T-Bone. He goes, oh, that's not a good idea. I said,
That is so Nashville, isn't
it's
it?
very Nashville.
That's so Nashville.
Well, he said, well, these guys are the top guys. They don't like to play with guys they don't know, and he might not fit in, blah, blah, blah. I said, don't worry, it'll be fine. And then we started recording the sessions, and then all these bass players started showing up. Steve Mackey, who ended up being one of my best friends in my band now, and Michael Rhodes, and all these bass players start showing up. And the engineer Bill kept saying, "Why are these bass players showing up? They're here to see T-Bone." And so obviously, it was pretty clear from the very beginning that he was going to rock this thing.
Yeah. Do you experience that? To me, is the most Nashville thing I've ever heard. What is that? Why is that a thing?
Well, it was just that he didn't know,
Yeah.
In his defense, Bill Vorndick's a great engineer. He became a professor at Belmont, and engineered some of the greatest country albums, of all time. But the musicians were all open-minded. It's just that Bill just didn't know who he was, but he found out quite quickly who he was, right?
So in the 80s, you guys inducted the Temptations into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And there's this awesome video online where you guys start spontaneously harmonizing.
Oh, I don't remember.
And then they come in and they start singing with you guys. You don't remember this?
No.
You have to watch this video. It's unbelievable.
Oh, good. I was
going to ask if this was planned or not.
No, it was definitely not planned.
It was definitely not planned. No. You have to watch this video because you and Daryl start.
You mean at the podium?
The podium.
We were singing a Temptations song, I'm assuming.
You're doing this speech.
Yeah.
And it comes to the end of the speech and you go, why don't we just harmonize something? You and Daryl start singing.
Right.
And the Temptations come out of their seats in the
Yeah.
celebration. They come onto stage and they start singing with you.
Oh, well, that's awesome.
You got to watch this video.
I have to watch it because I don't remember that.
This to me would be the most mind-blowing thing. Okay, we're moving. We can't even talk about it. You don't even know about it.
I'll watch it though.
Okay, my other Hall of Fame question.
Yeah.
When you guys got inducted into the Hall of Fame, what was happening in the beginning of the set? Your monitors went out?
That experience, I have to say, I'm really glad we're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm really glad because as a career move, it's really powerful and it makes, carries a lot of weight. But to be honest with you, the evening was just drudgery. We were there from 5 o'clock 5 o'clock p.m. till midnight. We didn't go on till almost the end. We were exhausted. We were tired. The only thing we had on our table was candy and wine. We were. I was definitely having a low blood sugar moment, and it was just tiring. And then we got up there, and the shit wasn't working. The monitors went out. There was crackles and stuff, and we managed to pull it off, but it was not exactly what I'd call fun. And what you see on the edited version of the television show is a completely different experience than what was actually happening.
How can this be? It just seems insane.
Well, the night drug on and on and on and on and on. There was a lot of performers who talked a little bit too long. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to name names, but.
And you got up there, and Daryl goes, "Let's just play."
Yeah, we were tired. We were like, "This is stupid. Let's just get this over with."
Let's just play.
Yeah.
Fine. Well, it was a good performance. Once the monitors got fixed, it came together.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're doing this thing where you're putting out music, you're putting out a song a month, right?
Yeah.
And you just put out an amazing cover.
Yeah.
This month, right?
What a Wonderful World.
What a Wonderful World.
But I did a cover right before that too.
Yeah.
Why Can't We Live Together?
Why can't we
Timmy
live?
Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is this because?
It's just what happened. I wrote a couple songs during the pandemic. I wanted to figure out a way of releasing them. I thought to myself, and I know through experience that no one is buying any physical product. Sure, there's niche audiophiles who love vinyl, but it doesn't really move the needle when it comes to actual sales. It's a streaming world, let's face it, kids, and let's jump in with both feet. That's how I saw it. So I found myself a digital distributor in the Orchard and a digital marketing company in Black Box, and began to explore how to do this and learn. It was really a learning experience for me. So I've surrounded myself with some really great people who really know what they're doing. And I said, let's go down this road and see what happens. So that was the concept, and I released 2 of my original songs first. And then then with what was going on with the Ukraine and what I was seeing and with all the past presidential elections and the riots and all that stuff was happening, I just revisited the Timmy Thomas song that he wrote in 1971, which was about Vietnam, essentially. And I said, this is a song that's time has come once again. And so I wanted to make it my own. I did my own version of it, released that. And then I was playing a lot of shows, and I wanted to, during the pandemic, I wanted to, once I started performing again, I wanted to sing the most positive song I could sing as a kind of an antidote to the 2.5 years that we all spent hiding in our, our rooms, right? And I just said, well, What a Wonderful World is maybe one of the most positive songs ever written. And I said, but you know what? It's interesting that it was always done as a kind of a slow ballad. And I thought, this song deserves to be an up-tempo. And so here again, I wanted to record it like a 70s R&B song. That sounds to me like something I would have done with Arif Martin in Atlantic Studios.
Yeah.
Even the playing style was like that. In fact, I told the guys, I said, I want to play this like a 70s R&B song. And of course, and Steve Mackey's bass part on that song is amazing.
Who else played on it?
That was Steve Mackey. It was Guthrie Trapp on lead guitar. I played the rhythm guitar part. It was, Greg Morrow was on drums. I use Greg Morrow almost all the time. I love his playing. I can't remember who played keyboards on that. But anyway.
Guthrie's told me this story that I think you first met him at, a bluegrass festival in Telluride?
Yeah.
And you came off the stage, and you had a guitar, and you just said, hey, here, take this. And you just gave him your guitar.
Yeah, I didn't want to carry it on the plane.
That is the most rock and roll thing ever. You're just giving, what are you doing, John? You're just giving away guitars crazy?
I had a few drinks, I will say that. But no, what happened was he was on one side of the stage. He was playing with Jerry Douglas. I was jamming with Sam Bush. And it was the mighty jam at the end of the Telluride night. The traditional thing where everybody gets up and jams. And he just blew me. Well, all weekend he blew me away because I watched him play with Jerry, and then he and I hung out together. We went and watched Solomon Burke during the gospel Sunday morning.
Not to rat him out, he didn't know who you were. He didn't know.
Not at first. No.
Not at first. He couldn't even tell you a Hall & Oates song. He had no idea who you were.
He didn't.
He was just like.
But we went to the condo. We played some Doc Watson and stuff like that, and he didn't realize I could do that. But of course, he had no preconceived notion I could do anything.
Yeah, right.
So it didn't matter. But so I realized that we had a lot of the same folky kind of rootsy influences, even though he's a lot younger than me.
Yeah. And he's unbelievable, right?
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I love playing with him.
Yeah,
but we play together now all the time.
Yeah, right. And then, but now you're also going out. You're doing acoustic shows, and you've got like a percussionist.
Yeah, I play sometimes with just myself, sometimes with me and a percussionist, sometimes with me and Guthrie, and sometimes me and Guthrie and a percussionist. Yeah. I want to keep it really streamlined and simple. I don't want to get into this thing with a band and amps and drum kits and all that stuff. So I've just been doing acoustic shows, and it's easy, fun, and I like telling the stories and things like that.
The Arkansas record that you made, I guess now a couple years ago at this point.
It came out in 18, made it in 17. Yeah.
But I've listened to that record so many times. The covers on that are incredible.
That was a magical record. That I was originally going to make a Mississippi John Hurt tribute album. That's what I wanted to do because I know his entire repertoire. So I cut a couple tracks with just me and a guitar, in the most traditional way possible, and it was like, why bother? Why? Who needs me doing this again? Right? But what happened was it was one night, and I remember I was laying in bed watching TV or whatever, and I thought to myself, I've never heard these songs with a band. I said, and I love these songs, so let's try it. So I assembled this really eclectic band. So it was Guthrie on guitar, it was Josh Day on drums, and actually it was Josh Day on cajon and percussion because I didn't want a real drum kit. I wanted to make it as unusual and sonically unique as possible. Russ Paul, who's a
Great steel player.
mind-boggling steel player, and Nat Smith, cellist, who played with Casey Musgrave, among other people, do we have and Steve Mackey on bass, and that was the band. So I assembled this band, a cello, a pedal steel, and Sam Bush on mandolin, yeah. So it was like this really weird band that you wouldn't normally assemble to do a Delta blues record. Okay?
Yeah, right.
But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to. I didn't know what it was going to sound like, and we did the first thing we did was Stackley was the first thing we did. So I ended up playing just like Mississippi John Hurt, classic Mississippi John Hurt finger pickings thing, and I played it. I said, okay, guys, I'm going to do this. You do that. You do something else. I don't know what you're going to do, but just do it. And they started playing. Everyone just played naturally. And the beauty of the great players here in Nashville is that they really listen. They can really listen. They can listen on a critical level. And that's the mark of a great musician, someone who can really listen. And so we played it. We played it down a couple times, and it sounded really good. And I went in for a listen. We went into the control room to listen back. And my engineer, David Kalmusky, who has since become my co-producer on a lot of tracks, he said, John, I don't know what this is. He says, but it's amazing, and just keep doing it. So I said, well, if we can do it on this song, we can do it on anything.
Yeah, right.
And that's what happened. And so we cut like 4 or 5 songs the first week, and then I think we took a break for the holidays, and we came back in January, cut 4 or 5 more, and that was the album. And it really just happened. There was no, I wish I could have said, well, I had this master,
vision for the whole, that was all
sonically
laid
it's
out.
going to
Oh
sound.
my God.
I just picked the best players I could, and as I learned from Arif Martin, I let them do their thing.
Yeah.
But I guided the process. And that's the secret, to guide the process but not step on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Why did you, after Sarah Smile became a huge hit, that was the moment that you said, I got to get some music education, or I need to go to music school?
No, it was actually during War Babies.
During War Babies, you said that. I would think if I was you, I'd be like, I know everything. Like, I'm having hits. I'm top of the world.
I didn't know everything.
But what did you feel you didn't know?
Well, during the War Babies album, we had some players in the group who were kind of prog rock guys, jazzy prog rock guys, heavy metal, jazz, rock. And some of the stuff was very complex. There was multiple time signatures. There was just a lot of stuff that I could do it. I could hang because I have a certain amount I have good ears, and I had enough skill to hang, but I wasn't there, and I wasn't able to really, and I felt uncomfortable about that. And I thought, well, I can't go forward without really making sure I know what the hell I'm doing. So I kind of took a crash course, very intensive crash course with a really unique woman named Helen Hobbs Jordan. She was in her 70s then. She seemed like she was 105, but of course I was in my 20s. Everybody who's old seems like they're 105 when you're in your 20s. But she played stride piano on the Transcontinental Railroad. Think about that.
Oh my God.
She played in the railroad cars going across the country
For just like entertainment.
in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, and she developed the curriculum at Juilliard, and she developed a basic curriculum at Berkeley. Well, it was what Berkeley used as a jumping off point for the curriculum. She had this very unique way of, you're a musician.
Yeah.
She had a very unique way of teaching. So to just make it not too complicated, everything you did, you had to write, and you had to write it in 3 different ways. You had to write it in numbers, letters, 4 ways: numbers, letters, phonetically, and score.
Right. And phonetically would be like
notation.
solfege.
Notate. Yeah.
Yeah.
You had to be able to sing it, And well, we haven't gotten that far yet. So you had to write it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Scale
8.
degrees.
Yeah,
basically.
One,
yeah.
1 through like 1, 3, 5.
Right.
know.
Right.
Okay. Then you had to write it in do, mi, so.
Right.
Then you had to write the notes.
Like A, G,
Yeah, you
B,
had to
or
actually write
yeah.
the triad, whatever you're going to write, and then you had to be able to sing that, you had to be able to play it on a piano, and you had to be able to write it. So everything you did, you had to do in alphabetically, phonetically, like solfeggio, and write it and perform it.
And did you know the notes on the staff, or was this the first time you were learning it?
I knew the notes on the staff from when I took early guitar lessons, but I was so rudimentary that I was basically starting from scratch. And that's what you had to do. And then, in addition to that, you had to take 3 lessons with a solfeggio teacher, a writing teacher, a playing teacher, piano playing teacher, and then at the end of the week, you had to perform all that for her. Then you also had to audit a class ahead of you so that you had a general idea.
What was this program? Were you just making this up, or this was like a program?
This was her. It was she. When I first I inquired around New York City, like who's the shit, who's like the person to go to, and they said, well, the only real professional music theory teacher is Helen Hobbs Jordan. So I just made an arrangement to meet her. She was on 57th Street, right between 5th and 6th, and I went up to her apartment, and first thing she told me is how she kicked Paul Simon out because he didn't do the work, and then she said, okay, well, she goes, if you want to get B's, you can just go to college, but if you're going to get A's, you can try me, because if you don't get A's, you're not going to be here. She goes, she didn't pull any punches. And that was it. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to give it a try. And I spent 6 months with her, and I just did that. That's all I did. There you go.
And do you feel like that was the last time you had a big musical growth in terms of learning? Like for me, like when I was at Berkeley, that was the last time I feel like
I mean, that
excelled.
really gave me a foundation. It gave me a music theory foundation that I didn't have, and I needed it. And now I have it. So now I can communicate on any kind of level with any musician, basically.
So prior to that, would you be saying like, hey, this is a 1, 2, 5,
no,
or whatever?
I wouldn't say anything.
You would just say, like, you would have no idea what you were. You were like, this sounds good.
I play a bunch of cowboy chords, at the bottom of the neck, and just be happy with that. And every once in a while, figure out something a little more sophisticated. No, another good part of my music education came from playing with Daryl, because he was a piano player. So I had to translate his. He's a really good piano player, and he used a lot of a lot of unusual voicings, and he would also do a lot of pedaled bass notes and moving chords under a bass note, things like that. So I had to translate that to guitar. So I had to literally finger my way through these piano chords. So a lot of times people will always say, well, you play guitar like a piano player. And I said, well, yeah, there's a reason for it, so.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
You guys ever going to go back out again, or?
I don't know. It's hard to say.
Hard to say.
We're in a permanent hiatus for a while.
Yeah. All right. You guys had some of the first shows back though after the pandemic.
Yeah, we managed to get a couple. In the world, there were a couple we had to do contractually.
Yeah.
Yeah, we managed to squeeze enough in to get kind of satisfy our commitment. Let's put it that way.
When did he start playing guitar on stage? Because wasn't he mostly just singing vocals and then he played piano?
He started playing a 4-string guitar.
Like a tenor?
It was like a tenor guitar, but it was in a full size. And he actually had a couple made, some custom ones made. And then from there, he transitioned into playing guitar.
And were you like, hey, man, I'm the guitar player? Or you didn't care? Whatever.
He likes the way he looks playing guitar.
Yeah. All right. John, I can't thank you enough for
that was quite an interview. I didn't know that's where we were going, but
coming on.
I'm open-minded.
Where did we go? What have we left out? Have we left anything out? Is there anything?
Oh, my whole life. Yeah, I mean,
everything. Aspen, living next to Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Why was
I'm a dad. Come on,
man. You're a dad. I know. What does your son do?
I can't tell you.
He's a musician also, or
no,
just private life? Yeah.
He works in a unusual field.
Yeah.
Every time I ask him what he's doing, he says, "I'm keeping you safe, Dad." So
no,
let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Why was it so important? You make a point of this that you guys are not Hall & Oates.
We made that point very early on. No one paid attention to us.
Very early on.
But we did.
Why was that important to you?
Because we both realized we were two individuals, and we both kind of knew in the back of our minds that one day we were always going to be individuals and not be this. And we tongue in cheek named our touring company Two-Headed Monster, because it's really that's what we always knew that we were two individuals who didn't necessarily need each other, but it worked when we were together.
Yeah.
And so a friend of mine just recently told me, he said, John, you came into the world as John Oates the musician. He goes, you're going to go out as John Oates the musician. He goes, you don't have to be part of anything. And that's how I kind of feel anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Are you offended by the term yacht rock?
I'm not offended by it, but I don't like it, and I don't even know what it means. Does it mean that you wear like a funny hat that looks like, what's the Captain and Tennille? Is that where it came from?
Because I think that like you'll see yacht rock cover bands who wear the hats and who dress up like they're sailors, and then they play music, and like 25% of their catalog will be Hall & Oates songs. Like it's almost fallen into it's a thing.
I don't care for the term because I don't know what it means, and I've never.
You were on a yacht when you were writing these songs.
I've never been on a yacht. I've never owned. Well, I have been on a yacht, but I can't tell you what I did when I was on it.
What does that mean? What did you do on the yacht?
All I'll say is I was on a yacht in the harbor of Monaco during the Grand Prix in the 70s, and I'll let your imagination run wild.
What happened on this yacht?
Just let your imagination run wild.
Oh my God. Okay, but
No.
yacht rock is not it's not a good term. or what is it?
You know what? It's okay. I was just at Sirius XM recently. The Yacht Rock channel is their most popular channel of all their channels.
Yes.
Okay?
Because you guys are on it.
Well, good. You know what? If that gets the music around, that's great. I don't care what people call it. It doesn't matter. But all I know is that, I did play with the original Yacht Rock band. And you know what happened? It was really interesting, and I'll tell you. I was on the Jam Cruise, and I was part of the Jam Cruise, and they were part of the Jam Cruise. So they asked me if I'd come up and sit in with them on a song. I said, sure. And I said, let's do She's Gone. Great. So I get on stage. The weirdest thing happened. Because Daryl and I have been playing that song for so many years, it has changed and evolved.
From what is on the recording.
And it's not a completely different song. The essential elements are still there. But it's a totally different approach. And they played it exactly like the record. I'm telling you, and I was impressed because note for note, it was exactly like the record. I had no idea what they were doing. I was like, oh my God, what just happened? And now I'm up here and they're like, and I'm going, okay, all right, yeah, I got it. Oh. And I mean, they were so slavish to the original, in a good way. But it was eye-opening. I was like, oh, so that's what the song sounded like.
What's that rotary guitar sound you use on that song?
I'm using a wah-wah pedal.
That's a wah-wah.
I'm just wah-wah.
That's what I almost thought it would have been something like programmed, but no,
it's a real wah-wah.
That's a wah-wah.
Programmed.
I don't know. This isn't Kiss on My List or something.
The only programming that was going on in those days was on TV. It
was on TV.
It's called a television program.
Yeah.
No. It was a wah-wah pedal through a little Fender amp, with my little Stratocaster. Wow, wow, wow.
That was it.
Yeah.
What's that guitar that you played in the Live in Dublin show? You were playing your Strat. And then you had another
is it
guitar.
a blue one?
I think it was blue. Almost looked like a Les Paul, kind of.
Yeah, no, it's a TV Jones. It's a very. He makes pickups. He makes pickups for Gretsch and a lot of other people. TV Jones pickups are really popular and are great. But he made a guitar. I don't even know if he still makes them.
Yeah.
It's called the Model 10. He made two of them. One was a little bit larger than the other, and I just stumbled upon it and I liked it. I have two of them. So
very cool.
Yeah.
John, can't thank you enough for coming down.
Okay, Zach.
Coming down from all the way. You probably live close to here.
All the way from the West End.
All the way from the west side of Nashville.
Yes,
that's the best
right.
thing about Nashville. You're always so close.
10 minutes away.
10 minutes away. Thanks for coming on.
All right.
We'll see you next time.
Okay, thanks.
Whew.